In Genesis chapter 18, we actually get to hear a really interesting story about an important couple named Abraham and Sarah. In Genesis 18, we hear that there's a group of 3 visitors who go along the road when they encounter Abraham and Sarah's tent. Like good hosts, Abraham and Sarah offer them food, water, and an opportunity just to rest from their travels. And while these visitors are there, one of them tells Abraham, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." Now, the reality is that some time before, God had actually made a similar promise to Abraham. He told Abraham that he would make him into a great nation with many descendants. It would be big, it'd be important. It's a blessing from God. There was just one big problem. Abraham and Sarah were old, very old, and they had no kids. They were past the age to have any kids, so how would this promise even work? As Genesis 18 tells it, because of this huge problem in their way, when this visitor makes this statement that Sarah would have a son next year, Sarah actually, in the tent and overhearing this, kind of laughs to herself. And she thinks, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? I think the word choice there is really interesting. Pleasure. Having a kid was very important to Sarah, an important role for her to fill. But so much time had passed and she'd had no kids. And now, since the time that God had made this promise to Abraham to make him into a great nation, I think a long stretch of time has passed by and still, no kids. I kind of think after all that time, maybe her heart grew a little calloused. Maybe she gave up on the idea of it ever actually happening, of her actually getting to be a mom, of this promise being fulfilled. And I think a lot of times we can be the same way. You know, in Scripture, God doesn't just make promises to Abraham and Sarah, but he makes a lot of promises for us here today. And although these promises might sound nice when we read them, maybe it's a little bit hard for us to believe. Maybe the things God is promising to do for us can seem impossible. After all the hard things we've experienced, how can God bless us? How can God really promise to show us his goodness and love? Or maybe we did believe in the promises at one point. But like Sarah, after waiting for so long, waiting for God to make good on his word, and after it seems like nothing's happening, it can be easy to give up on them. But Genesis 18 has really good news for us. It says, "Then the Lord said to Abraham, 'Why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son.'" So when we're faced with a similar struggle, reading these promises that God says are for us, but it seems like nothing's happening, I think we're posed with a similar question. Can God really make good on these promises? Is it too hard for him to do it? Is anything too hard for the Lord? No. The answer is no. Nothing is too hard for the Lord. And when that answer becomes hard to believe that nothing is too impossible for God, I'd encourage you to take a look back. See in Scripture the way God has provided for his people, provided for Abraham, and Sarah, giving them a son against all biological odds. And take heart, so that when you read those promises God has for you in Scripture, you can believe in them. Believe that He'll make good on His word. So when God promises to you to fight for you, to work for your good, to give you strength, to never leave you, to show you the way you should go, and to give you rest, you can believe them. So my friends, wherever you may be in life right now, however impossible these promises from God may seem, have joy in the fact that nothing is impossible for God. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.